And Master Neba brought the knowledge to us, really. And so in the Umtam school of spirituality and philosophy, we're taught like 3 different subjects. And that is the Medu, Katibi, and the Sunt. And sorry. Yeah, sorry. Yeah, the Medu and the Sunt, yeah. So our godfather, Wusa, who was Osiris, and our ancestral godmother, Aishat, and their son Eru, which is our father. It was through them that our ancestral lineage started. And in the middle class, like we're taught about the importance of language. We're taught about, like, say, the sidereal calendar, which gives us the concept of time and space, allowing us that we can connect at optimum times with our ancestors and the divine world. Some of us might kind of have experience of that inner feeling, hearing voices. We might call it inspiration, intuition, gut feelings, flashbacks, but never really understand, like, say, where these feelings are coming from. And so people are left confused, really, right, and they don't really believe in, really, right, that their ancestors, like these voices that they're hearing, it's, as we say, you're not alone. So we're here alongside our ancestors. Now, ancestral veneration plays a role in many religions and cultures, like around the world. So throughout history, throughout history, the human being, they've always had to deal with death and trying to communicate with the loss of their loved ones. And so there is what they call it, like the Day of the Dead, and this is like a Mexican kind of celebration, really, right? It's actually Mexican name. What's it called? Dia de los Muertos, which actually means the Day of the Dead. And on this day, yeah, it's actually celebrated. This is the Day of the Dead, and the celebration is actually celebrated on the 2nd of November. And it's a tradition originated in Mexico, right? And it's actually celebrated throughout Latin America. And the Mexican, it's a custom that it combines like an indigenous Aztec ritual with Catholicism. Yeah, and it celebrates the life of the deceased, and they do this by with food, with the eating of food, drinks. And they do this with different activities. And basically what they do is whatever that person enjoyed, whatever food that they like, music, all the different things that they like where they were alive, this is what they actually kind of display on that person's day. Yeah. And so families, what they do, the families would go on this particular day, the Day of the Dead, the families would go and they would clean and decorate the gravesides with flowers, candles, and other things, for their loved ones. And the dead are also remembered with, they also have, like, say, personal shrines and things which they also kind of set up, really, to honoring, like, say, the person individually. And basically on those shrines, really, you would have small personal, you'd have something like food, water, candles, flowers. These are like, say, just normal things probably that most people would probably put on their altars, really. And on the day of this Day of the Dead celebration, some of the popular symbols which are displayed really would be like skeletons and skulls, and so they appear on, like, say, candies, sweets, parade masks and dolls during these holiday periods. And what you have is like a festival where they'll be eating, drinking, all these kinds of things, right? And people will dress up in these costumes, like as I say, with skeletons, mask, and that's generally what the celebration is about. And on the Day of the Dead, it is thought, really, right, that the spirit is awakened from their eternal sleep to actually come and celebrate with their loved ones. And usually this lasts for about 2 or 3 days, this celebration. And it actually goes on an annual basis every year. I think it starts from the first of November to the second usually. Then you have another ancestral veneration, which is like from India, and they call it the Shraddha. And this is in the Hindu religion, where the Shraddha, the Sanskrit ceremony, is a religious and social responsibility, and basically all the males, like in that community, they have to partake, and the only people that don't have to partake really in the celebration are the holy men, And so it's a rite performed, right? The deceased parents, and it's for the grandparents and the great-grandparents, and what it is to protect and support and nourish the spirit to travel in the afterlife back into actual kind of, say, reincarnation. So to perform Shraddha's rite, a male family member known as the Kata makes offerings, right, to the local priest, and it's to the soul of the deceased directly. And the offerings usually is made up of rice balls. And so that is an Indian veneration that is actually done as well on an annual basis. So then you have the Paganito from the Philippines, and according to the ancient Filipinos religion, the spirits called the Anito would inhabit every part of the world. And the Anitos are the spirits, right, of the ancestors, which influence events in the lives of the living. And the Anito is also sometimes used to refer to as acts of worship and sacrifices used to please the ancestral spirits. And this ceremony is a type of spiritual seance in which a traditional shaman would communicate with the Anito spirit. And there are other organizations, that ancestral veneration.
Other communities, you mean?
Yeah, but there's other cultures, and other religion that actually kind of do these
spiritual observations, observances. Generally, they're not termed as religion. These are indigenous spiritual observances of their ancestors, which is ancestral veneration. So in Madagascar, for instance, one of the reasons why Nahipsa was speaking about different practices in different countries or parts of the world is to show that in as humans, indigenous humans have always venerated their ancestors. So as Africans trying to get back to our traditional spiritual systems, we're always being taught that they were evil. So just to show that there are other countries, other societies, communities that have always, indigenous peoples that have always practiced ancestral veneration. And one interesting one is in Madagascar, where the veneration of ancestors is prevalent, and approximately half of the country's population, which is about 20 million, currently still practice this traditional practice, which tends to emphasize the links between the living and the ancestors, which they call Razana. So the venerations of ancestors has led to the widespread tradition of tomb building, as well as the highlands practices of the Famadihana. So this Famadihana is where the deceased family members' remains are actually exhumed from their graves to be rewrapped in fresh silk and shrouds before being replaced back in the tomb. And this is a celebration where they actually remember their beloved ancestors, and which reunites them with family and community. And it's a joyful, festive atmosphere. So residents of surrounding villages are often invited to attend the party, where food and rum are typically served. So this is one of another way of another culture venerates their ancestors. And as I said, this is in Madagascar.
So really, it's a tradition really of ancestral veneration.
Across the globe.
Across the globe.
Mm-hmm.
And people do it in many different ways, really.
Yeah.
And for different reasons. In the sense they're honoring their ancestors or acknowledging their ancestors, but the ceremonies are slightly different as to how people kind of
according to whichever country they reside.
Yeah.
Yes.
And so we want to kind of say acknowledge all the different kind of traditional cultures really of them honoring their ancestors the way that they do, because at the end of the day we're all coming from somewhere, really, right? So it's good that we recognize those, really, right, who came before us. And so as humanity, it is about us going back as the Sankofa and recognizing, really, right, that without our ancestors there'll be no us. So yeah, we want to play you an interlude, this tune here, and then we want to go a little bit further into this ancestral veneration, because it's quite a important kind of topic, really, in acknowledging who our ancestors are, and why we should be honoring, them the way that we should be. And we'll just play this music here and we'll take it further into the... Welcome back to the Wisdom of the Nile show. And as we said, our program today really is Ancestral Veneration. And we just want to read you something from the Firefly magazine, really, relating to the... It's an article...
It's an article from the Rising Firefly magazine, volume number 62, from the Philosophy Podium, entitled The Jingling. So this is an excerpt from Master Naba's Neb Naba Lamusa Moradenabig. The Jingling is currently described by ethnologists as an ancestral altar marked by a circle of stones. This is only an honest description of what they can see. The Jingling is the essential base of a human's spiritual life. Its function is to serve as an energetic navel on every individual, and at the same time as an umbilical cord through which the energies flow from material and non-material forms. It is generally the place where the individual's destinies are expressed in their energetic form, transcending space and time. Our energy dialogues with Earth through the Bayuali and the Yenu happen in the Jingling. Manifestations of the consequences of our behaviors are, on the social level, perceived as maledictions or benedictions from the Jingling. Another way of explaining the value of the Jingling is through the Bayuali and the Yenu. The Bayuali is generally defined as the energetic channel through which earth energies are emitted in response to cosmic energies, the goal being to express the energetic identity of the earth through every one of its components. The Yenu is generally defined as the channel through which cosmic energies are directed toward the center of the earth through its every component. The cosmic energies arising on the level of every component of every planet come through the Jingling. The circle of stones in the house has no other goal than to materially represent the altar. Let's notice that the Jingling is the only place that holds complete, non-material proof of existence through all the cycles of reincarnation. In the Jingling, one can invoke all of one's ancestors and their reincarnations. This is why the Jingling is perceived as the basis of our projections toward the future.
Dua for that. And so that was just basically, the article was just explaining to you, like say, there are many, many different type of altars really that people set up really, right? And it acts as a portal really, like for us to communicate. And as it's explaining there, it's about, like say, the Bayawali and the Yenu energy. So we give out and we receive back. So this is a place where we go and we can kind of communicate with our ancestors, and that is like a designated space that we set for our ancestors and to communicate to the divine world. So now we've got like a guest that we're going to bring in to the show, and they're going to be speaking a little bit more on our ancestral veneration and the importance really like of the ancestors and why we would venerate our ancestors. So Ujjayi Hatani, can you hear? Ujjayi Hatani, can you hear us?
Yes, sorry, 1 second. Sorry about that. Yes, I can hear you. Can you hear me okay?
You're coming through fine.
Oh, good.
Yeah, I'm alongside here with Atini Kasati.
Ujjayi Hatani MENZEBA.
Ujjayi.
Ujjayi, how are you?
I'm good. How are you doing?
Yeah, we're good. We're here. How's the family?
Oh, everyone's good. Everyone's doing well.
Excellent, excellent. Yo, welcome back to the Wisdom of the Nile show. As Nahibsa said, the topic today is ancestral creation. And I've just read a small extract from the Firefly from the Macaroon on the Jingling.
Yeah, and basically, we we were just trying to kind of say, let people understand, the jingly is what we're referring to as our altar. And so, yeah, we want to say just welcome to the show, really. We're truly grateful, really, like, for you giving us your time. And, as I
Sure.
said, many other cultures, they actually kind of, they have this kind of practice where they venerate their ancestors, and we basically what we're trying to now is for you to kind of explain to us really like from a Kemetic traditional way, how like even from the Vodum temple as to how we would practice communicating then with our ancestors then really. And we were just looking at the word what venerate actually means, and it's the dictionary definition of that is to revere, to have reverence for someone, to adore, to honor, to admire, you know. And so, like, our first question basically then really is, like, so who is an ancestor? Could you just give us like a definition or your view of who an ancestor is?
Yeah, sure. And yeah, thank you for having me on this show. I love coming on here and having the opportunity to chat with you guys and have the privilege to be in front of your audience. I know you guys probably have a large following now, and I hope that every week it gets bigger and bigger, and that what you guys are doing it really reaches as many people as possible. Um, yeah, I mean. What you just spoke of in terms of the dictionary definition, and I'm sorry, you'll have to excuse me. I have my son here. Everyone's very busy, so there might be some background noise, but it may help in what I'm explaining. An ancestor essentially is a relative who has passed away, who has transitioned, and those who they've left behind, their relatives who are living, those who understand the realities of death and the journey that takes place, for that relative who is making their journey to the world of dead. When those people take care of that dead relative, what they end up doing is raising them to the level of an ancestor. So once a relative passes away, they don't automatically kind of become an ancestor. It's those who they've left behind, their family, their relatives, who are responsible for assisting them on their journey, providing them the things that they need from this side energetically, whether it be food, water, the same things that we require in life on Earth. Those things still transfer energetically when we leave the body behind. So just as we need water every day, we wake up every morning, we pour water to our ancestors. Just as we need food every day, every time we eat, we make sure to share with them. So even though they're not in the body anymore, energetically, those things still assist them in their journey as they, traverse the world of the dead, and they make their way, throughout the various stages of that, which, I'm sure is for another conversation. But an ancestor is one who has been taken care of, whose family has done all the necessary, has taken all the necessary steps and have provided all the necessary things in order for that dead relative to be kind of lifted or raised to the level of an ancestor. And it's only at that level that ancestor now can benefit your life. They can affect your life in a positive way. They can look into your lines. They can look into your energy lines and see where it is and what it is that you need. They can go in without even you asking and arrange things for you, without you having to, always explain exactly what you need from them. Although we still do that too. We have our ways of acknowledging our ancestors. We have ways of speaking to them. That's done. Every culture, has a way of doing it. But at least in the Kemetic tradition, we have a practice called Zemzem, and that's an opportunity in which we can connect and communicate with the ancestral world, with the divine world, express ourselves, be received. That ceremony actually is preceded by ablutions, all of which is available or can be taught through the Mtam School of Kemetic Philosophy and Spirituality. So I'm sure all of your guests or all of your listeners have that information. So I guess in a nutshell, that's essentially what an ancestor is. Before they are raised to that level of being an ancestor and they can influence your life in a positive way, before that, if they're left in the stage of just being kind of this dead relative where they don't really get any of that assistance, they don't get any of the acknowledgement, they don't get any of the resources or the actual help that they need, then the only way they can really influence your life, the only way they can really reach you is through trying to wake you up. And that does not look favorable. Usually it could be perceived as bad luck. It could be perceived as, just being unlucky, or you may feel like all the doors that you wish were open in your life are closed. The things that you're looking for, they're not coming your way, or you're not reaching those things. But it's really those dead relatives who are trying to wake you up and say, look, without us, you can't achieve these things. So whatever we can do to push you in the direction that's going to open your eyes to greater realities, the greater realities that we're a part of, that's how we're going to move. So that's usually, that's how they'll affect you until you're able to take care of them properly and give them a way to benefit your life in a positive way.
So what happens to an ancestor who, for example, if the person we who are living don't actually know that we should be doing things to assist them really? What happens to that ancestor? Do they just remain as being a dead relative?
The short answer is yes, and that's really why. If you look in the U.S., it's almost like Black people seem to be cursed, because we don't. So much has been done to make that disconnect. Traditionally, originally, we know all of these things. Our ancestors, or masters, they're masters. They were and still are masters of all aspects of spirituality, include life and death. They mastered the understanding of what it takes, what's necessary to advance on either side. So because all of that knowledge, and just even our physical condition alone, the fact that we're so far from home, from Merita, and not only are we far from Merita, but the sentiment that we have towards our home is generally negative. All of the propaganda, all the things, the ideologies that have been sold, and all of the images, all of the ideas that have been put in our minds, especially Black people's minds, have really pushed us to kind of hate the idea of Africa, or of Merita. It pushes us to hate the idea of being there or being from there, as though there is somehow not connected to our identity, as though, to the point even, I've heard various interviews with people who maybe have quote unquote made it in the industry, in various industries, whether it be music or film and whatnot. You can hear interviews where people, especially young Black people, will say, I'm glad that we were taken from there, because what I see, I wouldn't want to live like that. You know what I mean? So all of the values that we had before have been so not only distanced, but we've been taught to hate there, which means we essentially have been taught to hate ourselves. Mm-hmm. It puts us in a very difficult position, because it leaves us it leaves us completely like at the mercy of whatever is black in the world, whatever is dark, whatever is negative in the world. We become like a playground for all those things, and we don't have the main characteristic, okay, that will help us. We don't have our ancestors. It's like being at sea and you don't have an anchor. There's nothing to stabilize you, despite the wind, despite the current, there's nothing to tether you so that you don't completely lose your balance, lose your focus, lose yourself. We don't have that. So essentially that's the suffering that our ancestors are in, and the suffering that they're feeling from being rejected, from being denied, from being, thrown away. That's that suffering, that anger, that resentment, all of that is in us because that's what they feel, and they are us. So the blood that's running through your veins, that resentment that they feel, that's what's in every single one of us. And we may not know what that is, you know what I mean? But it's the very identity that you carry that's against you. So you end up walking around in life with this this anger, with all kinds of sicknesses. You know what I mean? We have all spiritual sicknesses, physical sicknesses, mental illness. All of these things result from the fact that we don't know, how to take care of our ancestors. But the best we can do is be open-minded, because you never know. It could be this radio show. It could be, one of the videos on YouTube. It could be a friend. It could be someone that point you in the direction of, whether it's the Earth Center, whatever it is, wherever it is, to make you say, maybe there's something bigger than me that I need to be taken care of. Maybe there's something bigger than me that is important to have value for, outside of what's just offered to me in this society. Because everyone can look around and see that things aren't okay, So, I could say for a start, it's so important to have an open mind. But even now, that's difficult for us because, there's so many ideologies out there that are battling for your attention. They're sold to you just like soap or clothes or whatever you can go to the store and buy. Ideologies are bought and sold. It's called college. It's called higher education. They're bought and sold to you just like anything else. So when something that resembles your culture, when something that actually is authentic, it comes across your path and say, hey, we're here too. It's met with that suspicion because your perception's been battled for since you were 18, and even before that, So, all these things have been really set up to kind of put Black people, especially people of color, but really all people, you know what I mean? It's not just a black, white, whatever thing. It's really all people, because ancestors are a reality for everyone. And don't think that those who are responsible, anyone that's responsible for getting you to hate yourself or to be ashamed of your identity, doesn't know what ancestors are and what the power that they carry is. They know.
Yeah.
It's why those things have to be disconnected from you. Because imagine if all of us in the U.S., imagine if people were aware of how to take care of their ancestors and had all of that force behind them, had all of the benediction, had all of the guidance, the protection, everything that an ancestor provides for you behind them. There's no way a system like this could stand. There's no way a system like that could survive. So that's why those things have to be broken. So unfortunately that's the case. But I would say, it doesn't have to be a fatalistic perspective. Anyone listening to this show can just continue moving along and asking questions. Keeping an open mind and asking questions is important.
So for someone who don't know, like say they want to acknowledge their ancestors, but they don't quite know where to start, where would be the best starting point?
Oh, okay. I would, as an initiate, I would definitely say to use the resources that the Earth Center has to offer. I mean, of course, there's the initiation itself, where you will get firsthand knowledge. You will get the firsthand understanding of, how it is our ancestors live, what these values are, what they look like, how to apply them, and really start to undergo that shift, from having one perspective to another. But then there's also the publications. There's also natural traditional herbs, medicines that are available. There's CDs, there's DVDs. There's just a lot of material, a lot of information that's available that's free, at least online. And then, whatever you can stop, excuse me, whatever. I say free, meaning like the videos, the YouTube channel. I would say to check that out. You can check out the website, just any of the resources that the Earth Center has to offer. I would say that's a great starting point, because it covers pretty much all aspects of, what traditional spirituality essentially encompasses.
Sure. And so when we elevate our dead relatives to ancestors, yeah, how can they help us? How do they help us?
They help in a number of ways. It's like being a child and wondering what your mom and dad can do for you. They're the ones that will either open the door for you to receive what you want to receive, or based on your behavior, they can close that door. For instance, I have two sons with me actually right now in my room, and one is 4, soon to be 5. One's a year old. Mm-hmm. If my 4-year-old wants to have something, wants to use something, wants something of mine that's not essential to his survival, maybe if it's sweets, maybe he wants to watch a movie, I have to determine how his behavior has been in the day, in the week. Did he take care of the things that were essential for his survival? Did he take care of the things that were essential for his education? Did he take care of the things that I asked him to do, because I'm thinking and I see further than him, than where he can see in his life? I see further than him. Did he do all the things that I asked him to do? Did he do all the things that were necessary based on how far I can see and knowing what's best for him, before I give him permission, or before I allow him to enjoy himself, or before I allow him, to have like a gift or something like this? We all look for what's good in life. We all look for what's sweet in life. We all look for, the benedictions. We want things that are good all the time. We go into our prayers and we ask for things that are good. We ask for the doors to be open for us to, find a good job and a husband, a wife, children. We all want these things in our life. But unless we take care of our ancestors, unless we take care of them first, because they're going to be the ones to determine, they're going to be the ones to open the door for all of that. All of that is in their hands, because they're the ones that see further. Just like I see farther than my 4-year-old, he doesn't know, he's not thinking of his life 5 years from now. That's my responsibility, because I'm the parent. Just like us, our ancestors see many lifetimes beyond this. They see our journey and our path long beyond what we can see. And so whatever they put in front of us to achieve, whether it's good, whether it's bad, whether it's struggle, whatever it is, challenges that we have to face, if we're not good at facing those, they're not going to give us the things that, maybe we want right now. Because perhaps, just like my son, if I give him something that he didn't have to work for, he's not going to appreciate it. He's not going to value it. And it's not going to make him a better person as he continues to grow older. And it's the same way they see us. So they're the ones really holding our life. It's their life. It's really not our life. We just have the body. Because remember I said, once you give up, once you get rid of the body, your journey continues. Mm-hmm. Your journey continues. The body's only necessary to live on the earth. That's why in order to enter the world of the dead, you have to leave the body behind. You can't bring it with you. So that life, that journey, it still continues, and our ancestors see both sides of that journey. They see the journey on this side. They see our journey on the other side. They see everything. They see long, beyond what we can see. So whatever we're looking for in this life is available if we know how to take care of them. If we know how to take care of our ancestors, make sure that they're in a good position, because it's a reciprocal relationship. If they're in a good position, if we're providing for them and we give them the force and the strength, then they too will return that back to us. It's like there's a saying: if you wake up in the morning, whether you greet your parents or you don't greet your parents, either 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 way, it's going to have an effect on you. If you wake up and greet your parents in the morning, that's going to follow you throughout the day. If you wake up and you don't greet your parents in the morning, that too is going to follow you throughout the day. They're your parents. Without them, you're not in the world. You know what I mean? It's them who put you in the world. So it's the same thing with your ancestors. They're the ones, even like they're in you. They're you. If you look in the mirror, there's no part of you you can point to and say, yeah, that's me. Because all of it looks like someone else. There's no part of you that doesn't look like your mom or your dad or your uncle or your grandfather, your grandmother, great-grandmother, great-father, brother, sister. You're just a combination of everyone that came before you, so all of them are living in you. If you don't take care of them, it's the same thing as not taking care of yourself, you see.
So really,
If you have conflict with them, if you're in conflict with them, or if they're, unhappy with you, you're unhappy with yourself.
Yeah.
That's what that looks like.
So a question from a member of the public is, how do you go about honoring your ancestors that you had no cultural connection with?
Well, that's a different, kind of like what I was saying, difficult question, because there doesn't exist an ancestor that you have no connection with. That makes sense, because think of the bloodline as a river.
In regards to
that
their
never
culture,
dries.
yeah. But if, for instance, those who were taken from their cultural roots, so therefore, and brought to the West, and enslaved, so they've lost that cultural connection to their ancestors. So, the question was, how do they go about honoring them, and as there's no connection between them, how do they go about creating that relationship?
I understand. I see. Okay. Duo for the clarity. There are a number of ways. I think you just read that article on the Jingling. That's all. That's very important. But I would say that really I can't say anything different from what my master taught me first. And that's the ablutions and the zemzem. It's so important to first know how to clean yourself, and then in your house know what it is to have a designated space. Even if you don't know how to do the zemzems, if you don't know how to do the spiritual activities yet, I would say to start, doing the best you can to research and learn those. But if it's like right now today, always keep a space in your home that's just dedicated to them, to your ancestors, because they don't have the body like we do. They're much purer than we are. You see how corruptible the body is, how, even if you leave it for a few hours, it'll just start smelling. The body, we go to the bathroom, there's all kinds of things that are that compromise our purity as human beings, but they don't have that. So it's important to keep maybe a space in your house, whether it's a corner or a room, that's just dedicated to where you can put food or pour water, for instance. So whenever you cook, before you eat, put some in a plate and to the side. Put some food and water, whatever you're about to eat, before you put it in your mouth. Put some to the side in that space, and always keep it clean. Always keep it clean, because everything likes to be close to what's clean. Keep it clean. That's not a place you'll go unless you're doing that. Unless you're going to put food. Unless you're going to, just put things in the space that may be attractive to them. So that would be one suggestion that I have. But to kind of really start making that connection, you two will have to learn how to purify yourself, because it's one thing to have a clean space in the house, but then you yourself will want to learn how to meet that cleanliness on a physical, but also, but on a spiritual level. Go out. And that'll come with learning ablutions and things like that. So to start that connection, I would say to have that clean space, and then we have a calendar. There's the app version of it now that's available for phones. Take your brother with you for phones, and then there's the actual physical calendar that you can order from any of the Earth Center locations, and that will let you know what days we actually feed our ancestors, like the actual days in a 10-day cycle that we leave food for them in our respective prayer spaces, or sacred spaces, clean spaces where we put things for our ancestors. So I think that would be important. You see it. I don't know. Every culture. I mean, every tradition. Every culture has a way of doing it. When I was young, my mother used to get her nails done all the time, and every time we go into the nail shop, before you could even walk through the foyer, you have to pass kind of like a mini. They have like shrines. They have incense. They usually have some fruit there, and like a statue. Or something like this. I've even seen pictures, like photos, old photos. And that's their culture. So even to do business with them, you have to first pass through that and accept that this is what they do, to walk through their doors and like even get your nails done. They put them right at the front because they know it's their ancestors maybe that have given them the benediction to have a nail shop, to have business, something like this, So yeah, having a clean space in your house is I think a very good start. You can put pictures of your relatives who have passed away. If you know what they liked to eat, or things that they like to drink. If they had a preferred wine or alcohol or something like this, maybe you can put that by there or by their picture. Just things that might attract them. But as long as it's clean, that's the most important. You don't want to clutter it. You know what I mean? But it's just nice to keep that space clean, and having photos of them is good.
Yeah. Can I just state for the records that the photograph should only have dead relatives in that? Is that correct?
Absolutely right. There should be no one in the photos that's still living.
And also, for those who are not on their way to going through initiation, the Book of Purification is available, so they can learn ablutions in order to cleanse themselves prior to their prayer into to the ancestors. So that book is available, as Hatani said, from the website, which I will just say is www.theearthcenter.org. Center is spelled CENTER. For those in the USA, North America, and for those in the UK, it's www.theearthcenteruk.com. So you can purchase that Book of Purification, written by Neb Naba Lamusa Moran Denebig and Naba Irita Shenmira.
No. And also, you said that every 10 days we honor our ancestors, yeah? But can we honor our ancestors on every day, or is it just on the 10th day?
It's okay, yeah. It's the 5th day of every 10-day cycle. That's what we call Ancestral Holy Day. So yes, we can feed them every day, which we do. Every time we prepare food before we eat it, we always put some to the side for them. But Ancestral Holy Day is when they specifically, it's like a designated day where your ancestor, where your dead relatives specifically come to that space looking for food. So whenever we share, because our ancestors are always with us, they're always around us, they're always present. And so whenever we have food, whenever we have beverage, we always, out of respect, always, pour some out before we drink or eat, or put a little to the side before we eat. But on Ancestral Holy Day, energetically, that's the day they eat. That's the day that they come looking to see if you have a space where you've provided that energetic exchange, or where you've provided some food for them. And they go there either to be disappointed that you haven't, or to be, right, or to be, fed and nourished, so that they can continue their journey on their side. So, and let's see, you can, I don't know if I know there's a lecture DVD on it. I don't know if it's in any of the YouTube clips. I don't think so. But there is some tutorial, some explanation of what to prepare if you don't know what to prepare for your ancestors. The spiritual cakes that we prepare on Ancestral Holy Day. There's a tutorial. I believe it's in one of the DVDs for sure. I don't know about any of the YouTube clips currently online, but you can find that DVD for sure at an Earth Center location, and it's explained in the DVD how to prepare those cakes.
Well, you could also get those on the calendars at the back of the calendars. There's also
that's right. That's right. Yes.
Yeah, it gives you on both for the divine holy days and the ancestral days. It actually just gives you some kind of an idea of how you can approach and present the divine will and the ancestors.
So
yes, absolutely.
HASATI, another question, please, from the public.
Sure.
What happens when your ancestors are from a different religion? Say, for instance, they're Christians or Muslims. Can you honor them in the same way?
Okay, I understand. The thing is, like, when religion, these kinds of things, because they're so new to the world, those things, in life, many people follow religion as though it didn't have origins kind of like somewhere else. Mm-hmm. But what happens is once you transition, once we leave the body behind, once we die, reality faces us. No matter what we believed in life, the reality can't be changed, can't be shifted. And a lot of religions are, I don't know, in the religions that have covered probably the most ground are, what's the word? They dissuade you from honoring ancestors because of the one God relationship. Yeah. Because of they sell the idea that a human being can have a direct relationship, with God. So any middleman, any ancestors, that line that goes between a human being and the divine world, like, just doesn't exist. But in reality, once you die, your children, no matter what God you believe in, it's your children that you're going to be relying on to feed you, because that this one God, or the God that you worshipped in life, no matter how powerful he is or she is or it is, could not bring you into the world, couldn't put you on this earth without going through your mom. Mm-hmm. If you say that this God is supreme and this God is the best and this God is this and this and that and all of the glory and all of the everything, well, apparently you couldn't even be in life without that God having to go through your mom and dad. Apparently it needed, human beings just as corrupt as you in order for you to be in life. So whatever reason we would think that same process doesn't go the other way for us to reach the divine world, we don't have to go through ancestors, isn't even isn't a universal logic. It doesn't fit in the reality. So when you have religion, because it's new to the world and its origins, in all the religions you can name, all of the origins go back to Kemetic culture, go back to traditional culture, which can be which originated, which you can see in MENZEBA, and it's our ancestors who preserved it. It's our ancestors who have preserved it for this long. And everywhere you look in the world, every culture you look in the world, every people that you look in the world, acknowledge that MENZEBA is this enigma. Acknowledge that MENZEBA is the cradle of civilization. And why? It's because we understood all of these things. We understood all of these things long before religion had started to even make its mark on the world. So, yeah, in life, maybe they were Christian or Muslim and all those things, and we don't judge them once they transition, because now that they've transitioned, we know that they see.
Yeah.
They see clearly. Yeah, they see the reality of what their journey, what's happening to them, can't be denied. So that's for them to see on their side once they get there. But yeah, no, we still honor them based on their traditions, all of our tradition, based on Kemetic tradition, because they themselves will recognize that. In Christianity, in Islam, in Buddhism, however it is, there's a certain way that we send off the dead. There's certain things that we do. There are certain steps that we take in order to usher them into that other world. And I don't, those who are listening, who are religious, maybe, I think in Islam they might there were some they have some practices that kind of show that their religion is coming from somewhere.
Apologies, we've lost HASATI MENZEBA.
Oh, sorry. My
there you
son
go.
pushed the mute button. Here I am. I was saying there's it's just important that we send off the deceased in a very particular way. So once you miss that, because there's a certain window, that you have, and once you kind of miss that window, that dead relative, they don't really, it's like missing the train, and then you got to play catch up. And that's our reality for generations upon generations upon generations, because we didn't know, we were disconnected from that process for so long. So we don't know how to send off our dead, or even how to bring our children into the world. All of these things are surrounded by ceremony. All these things are surrounded by the acknowledgement of nature, the acknowledgement of ancestors, the acknowledgement of the divine world. And if we don't, an acknowledgement, of the earth itself, if we don't know how to acknowledge those things when we're born and when we die, which are the two most important and uncontrollable phenomenons that we deal with as human beings, if we don't know how to manage those two things, then we find ourselves in a very unfortunate circumstance, as you see Black people in the world are in.
Another question, HASATI.
Sure.
Once a dead relative passes, say for instance in life, if you didn't have a good relationship with them, if they weren't necessarily a good person, would you still honor them?
That's a great question, and that comes up a lot even in initiation. And the answer is absolutely. Absolutely. You still honor them, because two reasons. One, there's a lot of reasons, but the first one is once you leave the body behind, all of that emotion, all of the grudge, all of the anger, all of those things, they see clearly now. They don't have kind of like all of those worldly binds they see very clearly that they need you. And whatever, because they're now fully dependent on you to assist them. Excuse me. And having a grudge or having anything towards them, even if they weren't perfect in this life, understandable. Once they transition, the best thing that you can do is clean your heart and forgive. Like, be clean of any anger that you may have towards them, because now, if you guys are sharing the same blood, that ends up working against you. It did in life, but it does even more in death, because now they can affect you. Like, the effect they have on you is magnified.
More powerful, isn't it?
Exactly. But on the good side also. On the good side also. And they're not holding that for you anymore. You know what I mean? Like, once they transition and they see, like, okay, you know, like they see, their sight, like I was saying, the comparison, me an adult to my 4-year-old, they see much farther now. They see what they couldn't see before. And so when, for example, if it's your parents, these are your parents. If, whether it's your mom, dad, or grandfather, or or grandmother, whoever it is, whatever grudge that you may have against them, you still have to remember, without them, you would not be here in life. There's a saying in Merita, if your mother's a witch, then you're just a child of a witch. It's still your mother. You can't insult her without insulting yourself. That's still your father. You can't insult your father and not bring shame on your own self, because they're you. They live in you. Does that make sense? So if no matter what they did in life, I can't judge my mom, I can't judge my dad, I can't judge my grandparents, because I'm not on their level. I'm not on their level. Maybe my uncles and aunts and all of them in their generation can judge them, but I can't, because they put me in the world. You can't judge what's responsible for putting you in life, if that makes sense. So maybe now my generation, I have brothers, I have sisters, you know, I can maybe have some things to say, I can even correct them. But my parents, I can't correct them. I can't judge them, whether they're good or bad or right or wrong. That's now for their peers to judge them. It's for their parents to reward or punish them. I can't do that as someone who's coming after them. If that makes sense. So, you know, if we can understand that, if we can understand that you can't judge those coming before you, even if they hurt you. You know what I mean? If your mother or father was a thief, a liar, a cheater, a whatever, then that's what they were. And that was your mom, or that was your dad. It doesn't change the fact that you're the daughter of a this, or that, or the son of a this, or that. You know. So, at the end of everything, we realize life is temporary, and once the youth is temporary, once all that finishes, you need all the help that you can get from your ancestors. You need all the assistance, all the benediction, everything that you're looking for in your life. All of them can help you with that, and you need as much of that help as possible. And that can't be done if your heart is not clean. Even just to be a spiritual person, you can't. Whatever you're looking for in your life, you're not going to encounter that without having a clean heart. You know. So really, whatever they did in life. And I'm not saying they you know, that anger isn't justified, but now if you're trying to move forward, you'll never achieve what you're looking for, because what that requires is now of you to have, you know, to change. You have to have a clean heart. It's required. It is difficult, but it's required to enter into initiation. Even that's like the first step. You can't come in holding like past grudges and all of that. You have to be able to put all that in the last, the stage before. You have to leave that where it was, and so that you can move on. Otherwise, whatever you're going to be learning, whatever you're going to be seeking, it's like just going through the motions. Everything will just be in the garbage at the end of the day. You won't be able to retain any of it. So
for those people who never gone through initiation, don't know anything about ancestral veneration, or they're actually have got negative connotations about ancestral veneration, and they ask that question, why would you want to raise a relative who wasn't a good person? but I want to raise my relative who was a good person. There's no picking and choosing when you're venerating your ancestors, is there?
No, no, there's not. And the thing is, like I said, the one of the big weaknesses about human beings is that whenever we judge others, it's very easy for us to be super critical. But when we judge ourselves, we're oh so generous. We're very, very generous. And the reality is, we don't get to judge. A human being cannot judge the goodness or badness of another person. It's just not possible. That's like I said, you can't judge your mother or father. We're all the only ones equipped to judge us are the ones who like are perfect.
Yeah.
You have to be perfect. You have to be cleaner than me. You have to be purer than me in order to judge my cleanliness or my purity. I can't be in life judging someone next to me on the same journey, wanting the same things that I want. Maybe they have a different way of going about it, and say that they're evil. Because whatever evil they have, I carry that same evil.
Yeah.
All the things that we see going on in the world, the way we want to judge the president, the way we want to judge, those destroying the planet. Yeah, it's terrible, but we all capable of doing that. It's just an indication of the evil that a human being possesses. The planet's not destroying itself, for example. It's human beings that do that. Human beings that destroy each other. And we can look and see, oh, that's terrible what's going on over there. But those people are no different from me. We like to believe that they are. But the reality is, whatever they have in, whatever they're capable of, we're all capable of that. The only difference, the only thing that sets people apart is what they won't do. That's what defines your humanity. You see people, in different parts of the world, just doing whatever. They have the green light. If I want this, I can chop off this person's head to achieve it.
Yeah.
I have all the means at my disposal to achieve my goal. Well, can I judge that person? I'm capable of that too. But maybe I give myself boundaries. I don't have all the resources at my disposal. According to my temple, I have to find another way. If I have a challenge, or if I have a dispute, I don't get to chop off heads. I don't get to do that. I have boundaries. So I have to find another way. I have to make peace. I have to find another way to achieve what I'm looking to achieve. You see, so it's just the things that we don't allow ourselves to do, the lines that we don't allow ourselves to cross at any cost, that define our humanity. That's what defines our humanity. So I'm saying all that to say, we can't judge even the people around us to say, you're good, you're bad, you're evil, or I'm not evil and you are. I'm good and you're evil. We can't do that now, let alone someone who doesn't have a body. You're talking about now ancestors. Those who have lived this life, they know life and death. They've experienced life, they walked this earth, and they transitioned, and they did it longer than you. They have more history maybe with the earth in this life than you did. They're probably older than you and passed away. And now you want to say they were good or they were evil.
Yeah.
But they don't even have the body anymore. As good as we are, we still have the body. We still have that level of corruption that we fight every day. We still have the thoughts. We still have the exposures that poison us every day. No matter what we want to think or how good we want to think we are, we still have those things that provoke us every day. We still have those little poisons, those little seeds of evil that we battle with every day. They don't have that anymore. So not only can we not judge, and to the extent of saying you're evil, I'm good. Now the ancestors who don't even have that, we surely can't judge them. We surely can't judge them because, like I said, we need them just as much as they need us. So, the more that you have in your corner, the better.
Yeah.
So can a sibling be an ancestor?
Yes, absolutely. Ancestors not determined by age. I was using that as an example, but no, they once all the rites and the necessary works have been done, they become an ancestor. Yes, because they can be raised. They are raised to the level of an ancestor, and that's done with our assistance, with offerings and things like that. They're raised to that level. So they can be raised whether they transitions, no matter what stage that they transitioned, in life, maybe if they were younger, if they were older, they can still be raised to the level of an ancestor.
Hmm. And within the tradition, yeah, they have they have other means of communicating or to the ancestors, like ancestral calling. Is that something that you could talk about? Like, because I know we do our divination, but that's things like that which is done in the temples, isn't it?
You're talking about ancestral callings?
Yeah.
Yes, yes, yes. That's something that's done. Um, but every culture doesn't do that, or doesn't do it maybe in that way. But every culture will have a way of um, accessing accessing we'll say the non-material dimensions. So yeah, ancestral callings is one of those ways. Divinations, are another one of those ways. Even in the Zemzem is another one of those ways. Um, there's a lot of, I mean, you have, yeah, you mentioned like the voodoo temples and all of that. There's many ways that the material and non-material interact,
Hmm.
because that veil is paper thin. It's that the material and non-material coexist. You know what I mean? It's not everything that's touching you right now that you feel. For example, my son has like 4 mosquito bites on his arm. You don't maybe feel that when it's happening. If you do, it's not enough to wake you up. It's not every sensation you feel. It's not every thing that you see. It's not every scent that you smell. So all those things exist. Just because they don't uh, necessarily appeal to the senses that we're familiar with, or it doesn't mean that they don't exist. So those realities are very much understood, particularly in Merita, and those realities are respected because we know that they're present all the time. So
Mm.
yeah. There's a lot of that interaction here.
Hmm. We, the question I want to ask basically is there a difference between ancestral worshipping and ancestral and
Veneration.
veneration? Is there a difference there between the two, worshipping and venerating your ancestors?
To be honest, I I also looked up just kind of to get the dictionary definition. I think worshiping was in one of the definitions. You know what I mean? So I think if I'm mistaken, if I'm not mistaken, excuse me, that
No, you're
that's
not mistaken, Hatani.
okay.
It is one of the
Yeah,
worship.
worship.
Hmm.
Yeah, worship. Yeah, there you go. Worship, I think, is like reverence
Yeah,
and give
yeah.
respect to. Yeah, so like giving respect and giving reverence to your ancestors, worship, all of that looks. It's just people do it differently. You know, Sometimes if you're not exposed, for example, to traditional culture, and you say we pray to our ancestors, maybe the first image that comes to your mind is the way religions do it.
Yeah.
You know, that's how we think of praying. Or when we say divinations, maybe the first thing that comes in your mind is the way that this ideology does it. But every culture, every tradition has their way. So we all, yes, worship and meditate. People worship their ancestors. It just looks different because every culture is different, and that's a good thing. Every culture has their like unique, identity, and has their unique way that they do things. But the principle and the practice in and of itself is what is uniform. That's what binds everybody. That's what keeps the civilization strong, because everyone understands that that's a part of survival. That's a part of our survival and our longevity as human beings. This is what we do. The way we do it looks different in Togo. The way we do it looks different in Burkina. The way we do it here looks different in Ghana. This is the way we do it in Benin and all over, but we all do it is the point, So
Yeah.
when you have populations of humanity that are still worshiping, that are still giving reverence to and honoring ancestors and all of this, for humanity as a whole, there's still like a future. The civilization can never be broken, because you still at the very root of roots have that connection. It's up to us now to attach ourselves to those roots, to seek those roots out, and now to be a part of that side of humanity that's working towards evolving. Makuru used to say, at some point you're going to have to choose what part of the world you want to deal with. And that's what he was saying. Like, you're going to have to choose what fight you're fighting. And a human being's survival solely relies on his or her ability not to waste energy. So it means, like, wherever you put your energy, wherever you put the force you have, whatever fight you're fighting, make sure that fight is with yourself. Make sure that fight is the one that's going to push you towards evolving. That's going to push you and your ancestors towards being dignified. What's going to push you and your ancestors towards the divine world. Because if you can do it, one person can do it in this lifetime and restore some dignity that's been lost to your ancestors. If that's the fight that you're fighting in yourself every day, then that portion, you as a part of the world, you've changed that part of the world. So that still stays with me. He said that many, many years ago, but we tend to kind of put our energy into other things, while you have people, like, we go out and eat McDonald's and go to the movies and search entertainment and thrills and all these things, while you have people, for example, in the bush every day who are just checking on the world, who are checking, to make sure that humanity is doing okay. So it just gives some perspective as to how people in the world maybe see what's valuable, see what's important, and what our energies are put into. Oh no, I just saw that I was muted. I hope you guys got that.
No,
No,
that's
that
fine.
was fine. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So, could you explain, like, say, in the traditional, like, when offerings are made to the ancestors, how is that done? Like, because you know that you have rituals where certain animals are sacrificed in. So, for the ancestral, how is that done, and why? For what reasons are these rituals carried out?
Oh, that is a very broad. It solely depends on the individual. We all come into the world different. For example, we all have different ancestors. We all have different histories. We all have different parents, grandparents. We all have different things in our bloodlines, different things, just in our destinies. So every person's work is different, based on how you were born, based on, it's a lot. There's no, like, maybe uniform thing. There are some works, yes. There are some works that happen based on, what's a good way to put it? Based on how you're born, or based on your situation. But it's not like the point I'm trying to make. It's not like a cookie cutter type of way that maybe a priest or a spiritual professional will go about helping people. So normally the intelligent thing to do will always be to seek out a spiritual professional, a priest, and have a reading. in that reading, because readings are for you, they're personal. It's a personal reading. So the that person will look into your life, into your everything, and based on, you know, what what that reading is expressing, certain works will come out of it. Perhaps you have a dead relative, or someone in your line that needs something from you, and it's not always necessarily an animal sacrifice or something like this. You know, energies can be manipulated and shifted by many aspects of nature. So it's not like, okay, every time you get a reading, uh, they require an animal. Oftentimes they do, because just like we eat, they also eat. But it'll be them that really will express what they need on their side, what energies that they need on their side, and that will determine, okay, on this side, let's go find those things, and then the priest who uh, did the reading will be the one to uh, fulfill that fulfill that work on your behalf. If you can be present for it, that's all the better. But if not, for example, like on Costa, readings happen periodically, and not everyone can be present in Merita, especially with the environment going on with the COVID and all that. To have their readings done, or to be present, excuse me, while their readings are happening. But if you can be, that's very good. Um, but if not, they still can get done, and you can still um, benefit, and remove blockages, and still take care of your ancestors and all the things that take care of you, or that are responsible for you while you're in life in this world. So yeah, those offerings, or sacrifices, all these things, spiritual works, all of that is just um, a reminder, or a reiteration of the fact that, especially in Merita, but in traditional culture in general, in all traditional culture, it's recognized that the non-material and the material are very close, and they rely on each other. And so the nature, what we came into the world and found, all the things in this nature are what we use to interact with one another, what we use to affect one another. Just like our ancestors may use our environment to affect us, we too can use our environment to affect them. And that's done, in a number of ways. Some sacrifices for sure are a part of it, but not always. Sometimes, there are other things that could be used.
And can I just state, for the record, that as you mentioned, there's other cultures that do also do that, but also so do religions. They just disguise it in different ways. For instance, when the Catholics, they have their communion.
Hmm.
So rather than people get caught up in ritualistic offerings, so to speak, it is something that is done across the board, whether it's through religion or for spiritual purposes. Would you agree with that, Hatani?
Sure, that's a good example. I mean, and a good example of how the religions that you see today are just, you can see how they're coming from something else. The idea, there's nothing original about what a religion maybe will have to offer. Here in Merita, like, you have, religion is even used to cover up the traditions that people do,
Yeah.
because still it's in a lot of areas it's still religion is still trying to spread. Religion is still trying to kind of uh, make its way. You know what I mean? But you have traditionalists who don't budge on any of that, and what they'll do is, maybe they'll put on the clothes, maybe they'll go and pray, or if foreigners come by the village, they see that they're dressed the part, But behind closed doors, they're the ones doing readings. They're the ones doing sacrifice. They're doing all the things that they saw their parents do and their grandparents do and their great grandparents do long before religion even came to these small villages. You know, they're not going to throw away what their grandfathers were doing because some people came in and say, hey, okay, this is what we're doing now. Even if they adopt it on the outside, they're still doing they're still doing the necessary things and taking care of the essential things that are done on the traditional side. A lot of that is just to keep up appearances so they don't get bothered.
Yeah, yeah.
And
So
sorry.
no, continue.
Yeah, and another question is this was a question from the public as well. How do they know who their ancestors are?
How does anyone know who their ancestors are? And
Yeah, is it just like say from their bloodline, or is it, because people are confused really as to say who are their ancestors? Is it just my father's side or my mother's side, or who are my ancestors basically? Who qualifies to be
I see.
your ancestors? Yeah.
I, I see. Yeah, anyone that shares your blood, anyone that will say share your destiny. Anyone on your mother's side or your father's side. It's not just your father's side or your bloodline side, and it's not just your destiny line side. Both came together for you to be here. So anyone on any we'll just call them lines. So anyone on either one of those lines, you will call an ancestor if you've raised them to that level. So
Hmm.
any dead relative on your mother's side, any dead relative on your father's side, these are people that can potentially be your ancestors if you raise them to that level.
Well, yeah, because
I
there's
need
like a confusion there, really, isn't it? There's that cut off line as to say who does qualify to be. So like second cousins, people like that, would they be qualified as like ancestors?
if they're on the mother's side or the father's side. But let's say, for instance, if what's interesting is you have a lot of people, for instance, giving so much this veneration to this Jesus character, yes, this Jesus fellow, who is not related to you. Like this person is not even in your bloodline. While you have people in your bloodline who are actually hungry, who are probably starving, and who have been starving for generations. People in your bloodline or people on your destiny line on your mother or father's side who actually are responsible for you having life on a very practical reality, like in the reality of things. They're responsible for the fact that you're in life now and that you are continuing life. Maybe you have children. They're 100% a part of that. Whereas the ones that you worship, maybe these are individuals or these are characters that have nothing, that aren't even close. They didn't have a part in your parents being here for you to be here. So yeah, on either side, on either side, you can you can raise them to an ancestor. What is it? It's been so long since I've gone back into like the colonial family tree. What qualifies as a second cousin? Who's a second
Um,
cousin again?
It's
a second cousin would be a child of your cousin.
And a cousin is who?
A cousin would be your parents' siblings' children.
Right. Okay. Yeah. So that would be, and see, that's the thing in traditional society, the family tree is much closer than that.
Hmm.
Second cousins it sounds distant and it sounds even more removed. So, for example, in traditional culture, if my dad has a brother, that's my father because it's the same blood. There's no difference between my dad and his brother. They have the same. They're the same. It's the
Yeah.
same blood in both of them. So if my dad's brother has children, those are my brothers or sisters.
Okay.
Now, if it's on my mom's side, if my mom, uh, or if my dad, excuse me, my dad has a sister, I'll call her my aunt. And if she has children, those would be like my cousins. But still, it's a lot closer than uh, I think the way we put it, like a second cousin and third and fourth and all that. Like a cousin's just kind of like a cousin.
Mm-hmm.
And then on the mom's side, it's the same thing. You have all your uncles over there. You have mothers over there. Same like how my dad and his brother are the same. My mom and her sister are the same.
Mm-hmm.
You know. So imagine it growing up and your mom's sister raised you like her daughter rather than her niece. How close you would be.
Yeah.
And if something were to happen to your mom, you wouldn't feel like you lost too much because you had two or three or four,
Yeah.
however many sisters she
Mm-hmm.
had. You know. So yeah, I think when you look at the family tree also, from a traditional perspective, you feel a lot closer to your ancestors because you realize like the relationships are closer than you think. They're not as distant.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
And with the relationships being closer than you think, the responsibilities to each other are also bigger than you might think. So, for example, if an ancestor, like if someone you call a second cousin was actually maybe a brother, that second cousin, meaning like maybe the child of what your dad's brother's child, and you're calling that child a cousin, or their children like a second cousin, but normally those are like your brothers and sisters. Even that ancestor, if that person